Hello, everybody. Okay, so we're going to proceed now with the second keynote. The first thing before that, just some administrivia. The first thing I always want when I go to like a summit or a conference is like swag. And if you've noticed, we have, so my personal request was to make sure that we had t-shirts. So we have t-shirts. They're at the back over there. So make sure that before you leave, you pick up your Digital Initiative t-shirts. Right now, yes. Get them now, because they'll be closed by the time you leave. Yeah, so you should get them right now before you go. Also, second thing, as you notice, all the food got eaten up and is now being eaten as well. We'll have more food and drinks in the Williams Room at the end of the summit. So at 8 p.m. we will head over to the Williams Room, and there's libations and more food as well. So just plan on that as well, so you can continue the conversations. And now I'm super excited and thrilled to introduce my friend Robin Chase. Come closer, Robin.
We are friends.
So Robin's a neighbor, so she lives like 2 blocks away from where I live. But importantly, she created this amazing service that saved my butt in graduate school. She had invented Zipcar. And Zipcar was the first sharing economy types of services. And so as a poor graduate student sort of living on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, the only way I got around was through Zipcar. So Zipcar was a great invention, and really Robin was doing sharing economy before the term sharing economy was even set up. So I'm super glad that she did this, and it was a personal benefit to me. Now she has engaged in a bunch of further work on thinking about the sharing economy, done a bunch of experiments in Europe in that space. Currently is an entrepreneur as well, has a startup called Venium, which is trying to do something around vehicle-to-vehicle communications and networks. And most importantly, she is finished her book called Peers Inc., which will be coming out at the end of
June 9.
June 9. And so Robin's going to give us her perspective about Peers Inc. And what she thinks is the future of business. Thanks, Robin.
Thanks. I took a class, there was one of these sessions at Kennedy School, like 10 years ago, and the woman said, I was around giving talks, and it said, control your talking environment. And I do not feel like I'm controlling my talk environment in any way here. So if you feel like sitting down, sit down. If you want to move over, I can't look at everybody. This is complicated. So we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to go straight to it. This is what has been completely occupying my mind. I feel like this is the last 10 years of my life's work. And let's see what happens when I go here. Where are my slides? There. So I cut off the front so we could spend more time at the back end of this. What I think is going on is we are restructuring the way we build organizations, the way we work, and effectively the economy. And there's 3 key components to this, and I'm doing this a little backwards since I cut off the front end. What we're seeing is we're leveraging excess capacity. We're building platforms for participation to do that, and we're having these collaborating peers working around us. And this is what my book is about. So we're inventing the collaborative economy and really reinventing capitalism. And you'll recognize these companies that you think that you've thought about for a long time, we've talked about for the last 15 years, what they really are is platforms for participation that are leveraging this excess capacity. And I want you guys to think more broadly than the sharing economy. The sharing economy is one subset of this. And so here you can see, FOSS, the Free and Open Source movement is sharing code. Idle money is being shared by TransferWise and Prosper. But it's these 3 components that are really changing the way we build things. And if we think about being consumers today, this is a really old-fashioned word. Do you think of yourself as a consumer? We really see ourselves as participants in every way, fully engaged. So I found this cartoon, which I love. Here's Moses coming down from the mountain, and you're saying, is there a section at the bottom for comments? Like, even with God, we are participants now. We are we are collaborators and co-creators. And this has been enabled by the facility that the internet has given us. So my favorite example of sharing, if we ever think about excess capacity, it's actually dealing with sharing, because it's saying, this is an asset I don't have control of myself. I need to share this asset. So I'm going to do this. My favorite example is bed sharing. So think about bed sharing. Maybe you guys have done some bed sharing. I don't know. I travel a lot. And when I go to people's different countries, I want to stay at friends' houses. And so if I'm lucky, they have their spare bedroom, which also doubles as their home office. If I'm even more lucky, there's a nice double bed for me. And if I'm really unlucky, the teenager's been booted and I'm supposed to sleep in those disgusting sheets, and there's like no way in hell. And that is why, in fact, hotels were invented. And hotels really are bed sharing. And when I was building Zipcar, I would forbid my staff, this is in 2000, I forbid them to use the word sharing, because it kind of means it's going to be dirty, crummy, you're going to have to wait your turn, and I would say, why are you calling it car sharing? No one knows what car sharing is anyway. You're going to have to give 4 more sentences. And imagine if we called hotels bed sharing. It really is bed sharing. And as I think about this, we think about Zipcar really was this incredible, innovative thing, revolutionized, was a big disruptor. And I think actually we did for cars exactly what has been done for hotels. The exact same thing we did with cars. So I went and did some research to find out what is the largest bed sharing in the world. You guys know where this is going. So the Intercontinental Hotels group, they've been around for 65 years, and in those 65 years, 645,000 rooms in 100 countries. And think how much work that was. That the Hilton Hotel is vying for second place, and after 93 years, they haven't been able to pull it off. And you know what I'm going to say next? Airbnb, in its 4th year, had the same number of rooms for rent. This slide should make you all, if you're an old-fashioned company, quiver and think you're going to die. And if you're an entrepreneur, think, wow, how incredible, how can I get in on this? We are completely transforming every single sector in the economy by what's going on here. And Couchsurfing, in its 9th year, had 2.5 million rooms that you could share in every country in the world. So there's a new thing happening here, and what in heck is going on? And it's excess capacity, platforms for participation, and people. And why is this happening now? A famous economist called Ronald Coase invented the term transaction costs. And his idea was the reason companies get bigger and bigger and bigger is because the cost of dealing with lots of small parts is really annoying, and there's high transaction costs. The internet has effectively taken away the cost of dealing with lots of small things. And companies still do things better than other people, than individuals. I mean, why did we invent companies and institutions and governments? We invented them because they do things better than we do. And what are those things? Large investments. If you're looking at Robin Chase, I don't have that much money. I can't do these big, large, and some that cost millions of dollars, I can't do. Multi-year efforts. Robin's attention span is very small. Integration, aggregation of many parts. Individuals are good at lots of small little things. If you need lots of kinds of expertise, I'm really smart at 2 things, but I'm not smart if it requires 10 things. You can't ask me to do it. Typically, last one is like standards and consistency. I, as an individual, can't push for any standard. I don't have the heft. Like, I can't tell you guys to do something. I'm too puny an entity. And typically, this is kind of all bound together in a brand promise. And these companies, entities are global. On the flip side, individuals actually do things better than companies. And what are those things? Customization, specialization, and localization. If we think of the whole industrialization, the entire attempt was to get rid of customization, localization, and specialization, because those things were expensive, painful, and irritating to do. They wanted to do these big products the same every single time. Individuals do this really simply and well. Creativity, it always is coming down to our different life's experience and our different knowledges. I'm saying hello to Kareem on this one. It's because of our differences that the creativity comes out, and everyone is trying to get into my own personal social networks, and I, of course, happily talk to all of my friends, and I do things locally. Turns out that these 2 things are very complementary. And it's this new organizational structure that I'm calling Peers, Inc. Each side is only doing what it does best and leaving to the other side what they do best. The Inc. side builds the platform for participation, and the peers are delivering this diversity of offering. To kind of simplify this, it's really this yin-yang of a complementary and symbiotic relationship. Each side will only play if the other side is leaving enough value for them. So you really have to work together. It's a strong collaboration, and it's swimming in this sea of excess capacity. So let me give you some more detail on this. If we think about the excess capacity, what I love about it is that it's really resource and cost efficient. Who doesn't want to get more value out of excess capacity? And how am I defining it? Excess capacity is something that already exists, it's already been paid for, and there's more value there. And there's 3 ways that you can get at it. The first way is you can find the excess capacity and you can slice it. And that's what Zipcar did. Zipcar took this thing that you used to have to buy in this one big giant way, a whole car or a 24-hour rental, even though you only wanted it a few hours a day. So we offered it in little slices. We unlocked that excess capacity. You can aggregate. That's what Airbnb did. They took all these little tiny parts and they aggregated it, and now it's way more useful. Airbnb is so much better than a million bed and breakfasts. It's a totally different animal. And the third thing you want to do with excess capacity is open it up. And that would be an example would be open data. And Nick Sinai is here, and he's been talking about that. And the smartphone for me is the best example of this. I would say the smartphone is the platform for participation. You bought it for $600, and if you might buy it for 1 or 2 killer apps. And for me, it would not be talking on the telephone, because I never talk on the telephone. It would be, Gmail and, I don't know, the camera. And so you buy it for those 2 things, and that causes you to buy that big object. But now, there's thousands and thousands of apps that are being built on top of it on the excess capacity, filling up all of those hours of the day on this thing that you've already spent the $600 for. There's so many apps that most apps you would not spend that kind of money for, but you can do it because they're all leveraging the excess capacity on my camera, on my smartphone. If we look at the platform for participation, platforms, by their mere platformness, deliver scale economies and this high growth because they organize lots of little things, they simplify, and they empower. All of this work is the platform is giving the power of the corporation or the power of the government to the individual. And here is again with these smartphones, look at the pace of growth because it was a platform on the number of apps. In the first 5 years of apps, we've had about 1.5 million apps have been developed. And to date, I think it's over 2 million apps that have been thought up. And if we think about 6 years, totally without any good research, I would say that those 6 years have to be among the most innovative that have ever happened in human existence. This frenzy of different ways that we can look at these objects and get something new out of it. This characteristic of them having this exponential growth is one that we see with these platforms. So Etsy, it's a marketplace of stuff that people make or curate, and you can see it takes a long time to get the platform right. Platforms are really hard to make. Once you get it right, because all of this outside stuff exists and its excess capacity, it can all pile on really fast. Here, another example, BlaBlaCar, which is true car sharing and ride sharing it's in Europe. And so Robin is going from Paris to Lyon in my car, and there's 3 empty seats. BlaBlaCar fills up those empty seats. And again, you can see it takes a long time to get the platform going. Once it goes, it's phenomenally. Last year they transported 10 million people. They're currently transporting 2 million people every month without having had to buy any tracks, buy any rail cars. It's the same number as 5,000 high-speed trains or 5,000 747s that they transport every month without having had to buy and build that infrastructure. If we look at peers, the peers deliver this amazing diversity. And that's why they are so incredibly powerful, that I used to think, diversity is blah, 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 political speak. I live in Cambridge, I say diversity is wonderful. What I can tell you now is diversity really is incredible. And it's the part that gives us all this innovation and resilience and redundancy. It is the key reason why this Peers Inc. organizational structure is going to beat out every others, is because of this diversity. And so I have a company in France, which is peer-to-peer car sharing. And these are pictures of the owners in front of their cars. And you can see that it's different kinds of cars. That guy's from the south of France, the one with no shirt. Cool people, uncool, hipsters. So what's really been amazing about Buzzcar is that you can, unlike Zipcar, which owns the cars, Buzzcar is owned by other people. So if it's rented one time a year, great. If it's rented, 3 times a week, fabulous. And you'll know, so Relay Rides was an HBS student invented that, and I want to say I didn't do it because he had terrible insurance. So I fault Shelby on that quite a bit. But we'll move on. So this Peers Inc., why this Peers Inc. organizational paradigm is so fascinating to me because it has these unbelievable characteristics that I'm going to tell you about that I think of as the 3 miracles. But in order to appreciate miracles, I want you to get really depressed first. So hopefully I can make my slides work now. And I'm going to depress you, but I promise I will take you out of that depression in a minute. The World Bank produced this report. World Bank, a very conservative financial institution. And this report is 4 degrees centigrade, turn down the heat. And 4 degrees is 7 degrees Fahrenheit, which is how much average global warming we will have by 2100 if every country does everything it promised to do. So plus 7 degrees Fahrenheit increase. If you're like me, what does plus 7 degrees Fahrenheit mean? I have no idea. I had to go do some research. The last time we were minus 7 degrees average climate change cooler was the last ice age. And where we are right this minute in this room right now was under several kilometers of ice. So minus 7 degrees was 20,000 years ago, several kilometers of ice. We are going forward that caliber of climate change in the next 85 years. So just picture how big plus 7 degrees Fahrenheit really is and what it means to you personally. But it's a worse story than I'm telling you. When I went to do this research, when they talk about global average climate change, it's global. And over land, in North America, it's going to be plus 11 degrees Fahrenheit. That is, there have been no humans ever that have lived at plus. The last time it was plus 7 degrees Fahrenheit was 15 to 25 million years ago. There were no humans. We are talking about doing this. That's by 2100. If we do everything we said we were going to do countries and governments ever do what they're going to say they're going to do? No. And we'll be seeing these numbers by 2060 if we don't get with the program. And if it's this by 2060, by 2040, it's going to be hell. And so when people say, do this for your grandchildren, do this for someone else, I think, do this for yourself. Are you intending to live 15 more years? I certainly am. We have to deal with this right now. Bill McKibben, he's just recently said, for scientists, conservative by nature, to use the words serious, pervasive, and irreversible to describe the effects of climate falls just short of announcing that climate change will produce a zombie apocalypse plus random headings plus Ebola. We're laughing, and we do laugh, but we have to go beyond what those words mean and really internalize it. When we were using these polite words, and the reality is grotesque. My friend Bani Banerjee at Stanford, he said, you can't solve exponential problems with linear solutions, and it's true. And so this is why I say, try Peers Inc. And now for these miracles. So miracle number 1, we can defy the laws of physics. So imagine, I founded Zipcar in 2000. Imagine that instead of founding Zipcar, I said, you know what? I'm going to build the largest hotel chain in the world. And I'm going to do it in 4 years and beat them. Every single one of us in this room would have said, Robin, that is physically impossible. It takes, you have to go find the places in the open land in the cities. You're going to have to go finance it. You have to get the architects to decide what they want to build. You have to build it. Then you have to go furnish it. Then you have to hire the staff. And you have to hope you chose the right spot each and every time. It is physically impossible to do that in 4 years. We all, 100% of us, would have said that. This is the growth curve. So this is if you were building those hotels, business as usual asset building for the first 6 years. And here's Airbnb's growth curve. It's because they leveraged existing excess capacity that this could happen. So this is the power of leveraging stuff that already exists. We don't have time to be building some new high-speed rail, turning blue-green algae into some fuel. I don't care about that, and we're putting all our money and hopes into those things. We need to be doing these things with existing stuff right now. Miracle number 2. We can tap exponential learning. My example here is language learning. Have you guys heard of Duolingo? So Duolingo is free online language learning, and the unit of measurement for language acquisition is 1 semester of university, which is 130 hours. Prior to Duolingo, the number one way to learn a language, if you had money, was the Rosetta Stone. And so if you worked for the World Bank or your boss was paying for it, or a diplomat, you would buy the Rosetta Stone because, wow, in 54 hours they would teach you 1 semester of some college, some language. So I was talking with the CEO of Duolingo. He tells me he can conduct 100 experiments simultaneously with 150,000 people iterating on each one, and in 48 hours, he can tell you categorically which is the better way to learn a language. So he has it down now to 34 hours on average. People are getting the same amount of learning, same skill level as a semester, because it's hundreds of thousands of iterations. And if you look at their growth curve, they launched in August of 2012. Today, there are more than 50 million people who are using Duolingo. That's more people are learning languages on Duolingo than are in the US public school system. And just around excess capacity, one additional piece, just add here. If you think about learning language as language pairs, French to English, English to Spanish, he opened up his own processes of Duolingo to anybody who wanted to create new language pairs, Croatian to Italian. And he did that 18 months ago, and today 18% of all people learning languages are learning languages not on a pair that he even made, free. So leveraging the excess capacity of his process. Miracle number 3. Because we're working with this diverse population, the right person will appear. And no, not Superman. If you think about Superman, right now, every one of us in this room is way more powerful than Superman. Like Superman, he gets the call. All he can do is he can fly there, and he's strong. He doesn't know, what's the best path. He doesn't know, what are all the details around. He doesn't have Wikipedia. He doesn't have anyone he can call on. So he's, lame. So if I think about this, my example here would be Waze. And this photo, which isn't my photo, but it looked exactly like this, my own personal experience. Last Thanksgiving, there was about a foot, Wednesday, before Thanksgiving, there was about a foot of snow dropping in the afternoon. And I was driving up to New Hampshire with 5 people in a car, and my husband drives me crazy. We've driven this path 150 times, and he still has his little Waze app going. So he's in the front seat with the Waze app, and my son is in the front seat, snowing. And my son says, "Wow, look at that." And I think, oh, there must be some deer running across the street. So I go look, and no, there was a car accident happening right in front of us in slow motion. 2 cars hit together, and they're spinning off the road. And as we are literally the car behind it, but we're in one lane, and in the next lane next to us, someone pushed the button, and Waze tells us, "Caution, accident ahead." The right person will appear. Because we are dealing with so many people on these apps, and this is what the power of incentive is, this is the power of Yelp, the right person is now doing these things at the right time. So here's Waze's growth curve. I chose this one even though it's old because it's so charming, but they have more than 50 million users also, and they were founded in 2009. So if we think about this, Peers Inc. is a collaboration, and each and every one of these circumstances, it required both times. We defy the laws of physics because the platform is organizing things and making it useful, and the peers are doing this slam co-investment once it gets ripe. We have exponential learning because the platform is there observing and learning from all of those iterations that no one of us can be doing. The right person will appear because the platform has made it really interesting and done all the computing part, but we still need humans to be doing this real-time, on-location adaptation right at the edges. And if I think about addressing climate change, this is precisely what we need. We need to have things that scale really fast, that learn really fast, and that can be adapted to every little nook and cranny. So I just want to close. My belief is that we are firmly moving from the industrial capitalism to the collaborative economy. And I'm going to give you 4 reasons why I think this is happening. And if anybody, we'll have time for some Q&A, but if you see anything here that is not 100% true, please tell me, and my thesis will be wrong. Because this is thanks to the internet that we can now connect things up. This is the future. So, number 1, if we think about assets, shared networked assets always deliver more value than closed assets. And we know they do it in two ways. They use that asset more efficiently, or they get brand new value out of it, if you think of all the open data work. So shared network assets always deliver more value than closed ones. If we think about people, this is an old one. More networked minds are always smarter than fewer unconnected people. So you guys in this room, you think that you're really smart. You are really smart. But there are more smart people outside this room, period. We know that. And if we can get through to them through the internet, it's way smarter to be tapping everyone and not just the people in your company, in your room, in your dorm. If we think about collective action, the benefits and opportunities of shared assets are always larger than the problems of open assets. So think about Wikipedia. Yes, there's graffiti. Yes, there's liars. But I get the world's encyclopedia. I get to deal with those small things. I get this giant big thing for free on top of it. The opportunities of open assets are so much greater than the problems. And then lastly, from a very personal standpoint, me alone, when I participate on one of these networks, I always get more than I give. I put my little bit in, and I get this big thing of everyone else's stuff. So these four things, to me, are just categorical. The old industrial capitalism where I do patents and trademarks and copyrights and certifications and hold everything close, that is not the future. This is the future. And if I go to climate change and the pace of transition, the world that we're moving in today, we are moving in such a high pace of transition. Let's see if I got this. This is the structure for dynamic times because we can experiment, iterate, evolve, and adapt at a much higher pace when things are all connected. And that's what I got to say. There's my book. Thank you. Questions? My mic's off. That's it. No questions. Yes? No?
How can we learn more about this? It's coming out in June, I thought, no?
You have to go pre-order it. You have to go pre-order it, and I'm right now with a friend of mine that's down here is helping. I'm building out the big marketing machine, and I was realizing the reason I'm deep into this is for a couple of reasons. One is this is absolutely happening, and governments need to start adapting. We're moving from people working for one individual to people working freelance. 30% of Americans are currently working freelance. We need to adjust those rules. We need to address climate, and we need to address income inequality. So the way we build economic markets is completely transforming, but the shape of that future is going to be platforms, but how we share that value is uncertain.
So make sure you buy the book, and then Robin will sign it for you in the future. Or we'll get Piers to sign it. Yes. Thanks very much. We'll start our next panels now. Thank you.